The price of disarmament, a history written in blood. Throughout history, the consequences of disarmament have been written in the blood of countless innocents. The 20th century in particular stands as a stark reminder of the dangers that arise when power goes unchecked and populations are rendered defenseless. The 20th century stands as a stark warning against the dangers of unchecked power and the brutal consequences of disarmament. It was a century marked by the rise of totalitarian regimes, each more brutal than the last. From the fascist dictatorships of Europe to the communist regimes in Asia, the pattern was clear. Disarm the populace, consolidate power, and eliminate any form of dissent. Time and again, tyrannical regimes rose to power, utilizing gun confiscation as a tool to subdue their populations and eliminate dissent. The disarmament of civilians was often one of the first steps taken by these regimes, a calculated move to ensure that the people could not resist the coming wave of oppression. The confiscation of weapons was followed by the suppression of free speech, the destruction of cultural and intellectual heritage, and the systematic elimination of perceived enemies. From the Ottoman Empire to the killing fields of Cambodia, the pattern is chillingly consistent. Disarm the populace, consolidate power, and unleash unimaginable horrors. The Armenian genocide, the Holocaust, the Cambodian genocide, each of these atrocities was preceded by the disarmament of the civilian population. Without the means to defend themselves, these populations were left vulnerable to the whims of tyrannical leaders who sought to reshape society through violence and terror. These historical lessons hold particular relevance today, as calls for stricter gun control measures echo across the globe. In the face of modern threats and the ever-present danger of tyranny, it is crucial to remember the lessons of the past. The debate over gun control is not just about the regulation of firearms, it is about the balance of power between the state and the individual. It is about ensuring that the people retain the means to defend their freedoms against any form of oppression. By examining the atrocities of the past, we can better understand the potential ramifications of disarmament and the vital importance of safeguarding individual liberties. The history of disarmament is a history written in blood, a testament to the dangers of leaving populations defenseless in the face of tyranny. As we navigate the complexities of modern society, let us not forget the lessons of history and the price that has been paid for our freedoms. The preservation of individual liberties is not just a matter of policy, it is a matter of survival. The Armenian genocide. Disarming for safety. In the early 20th century, the Ottoman Empire embarked on a systematic campaign of extermination against its Armenian population. Citing security concerns and the need to quell potential uprisings, the Ottoman government implemented strict gun control measures, ultimately disarming the Armenian community. This left them defenseless when the systematic rounding up and slaughter began.
The disarmament was necessary for public safety.
The Ottoman government's justification that disarmament was necessary for public safety proved tragically ironic, as over 1 million Armenians were murdered, their pleas for mercy ignored by a government that had stripped them of their ability to resist. The Soviet Gulag, disarming the enemies of the people. Under the iron fist of Joseph Stalin, the Soviet Union became synonymous with totalitarian oppression. One of the regime's first acts was to implement widespread gun confiscation, targeting anyone deemed an enemy of the people. This broad categorization encompassed political opponents, ethnic minorities, and anyone suspected of disloyalty.
We were disarmed and vulnerable. Millions were rounded up and sent to the Gulag, where torture, starvation, and execution were commonplace.
The Soviet experience serves as a chilling reminder of how quickly a government can turn on its citizens once they are stripped of their means of self-defense. Nazi Germany disarming for national unity. Adolf Hitler's rise to power was accompanied by a carefully orchestrated campaign of disarmament.
While initially targeting Jews and other undesirables, the Nazi regime gradually expanded its gun control measures to encompass the entire German population.
The rationale was deceptively simple. A disarmed populace was easier to control and less likely to resist the regime's increasingly draconian policies.
The outcome was catastrophic. Stripped of their ability to defend themselves, millions were rounded up and sent to concentration camps, where they were systematically exterminated.
The Holocaust stands as a horrific testament to the dangers of surrendering individual liberty in the name of national unity. The Chinese Communist Revolution, disarming the counter-revolutionaries. Following the communist victory in 1949, Mao Zedong's regime immediately set about consolidating power. The victory marked the end of a long and brutal civil war, but it was just the beginning of a new chapter in Chinese history. The Communist Party, under Mao's leadership, was determined to reshape the nation according to its ideological vision.
One of the first steps was the implementation of a nationwide gun confiscation program, ostensibly aimed at eliminating counter-revolutionary elements and ensuring public safety. This program was not just about removing weapons from the hands of the populace. It was a strategic move to dismantle any form of resistance. The government launched extensive propaganda campaigns to justify the disarmament, portraying it as a necessary measure for the greater good of society.
In reality, it was a calculated move to disarm any potential opposition and solidify the Communist Party's grip on power. By removing the means of armed resistance, the regime could more easily control the population and suppress dissent. The disarmament campaign was accompanied by widespread propaganda efforts, with Mao and other leaders making impassioned speeches about the need for unity and security.
Millions were targeted: political opponents, landowners, intellectuals, and anyone deemed a threat to the new regime. The disarmament was not just about physical weapons. It was also about silencing voices of opposition. Intellectuals and scholars who had the potential to influence public opinion were particularly targeted. Many were arrested, publicly shamed, and subjected to harsh interrogations, and anyone deemed a threat to the new regime. The campaign created an atmosphere of fear and suspicion, where neighbors and even family members were encouraged to report on each other. Public shaming sessions became common, where those accused of counter-revolutionary activities were paraded and humiliated.
Disarmed and helpless, they were subjected to mass executions, imprisonment in labor camps, and brutal persecution during the Cultural Revolution. The labor camps, known as laogai, were notorious for their harsh conditions and forced labor. Many did not survive the grueling work and poor living conditions. The Cultural Revolution further intensified the persecution, with mass executions and public persecution sessions becoming a grim reality for many.
The Chinese experience demonstrates the perilous link between disarmament and totalitarian rule. It serves as a stark reminder of how disarmament can be used as a tool for political control. The events in China highlight the importance of vigilance and the need to protect individual freedoms. The disarmament campaign was not just a historical event. It is a lesson for future generations about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of safeguarding democratic principles.
The killing fields of Cambodia, disarming for agrarian utopia. Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge regime in Cambodia offers a particularly harrowing example of the devastating consequences of disarmament. The regime's brutal policies led to one of the most tragic genocides in modern history, where millions of innocent lives were lost. The Khmer Rouge's vision of an agrarian utopia was built on the foundation of extreme violence and oppression, targeting anyone who did not fit their ideal.
Driven by a twisted vision of an agrarian utopia, the Khmer Rouge targeted anyone deemed an intellectual, a city dweller, or simply an obstacle to their radical agenda. Teachers, doctors, and professionals were seen as threats to their ideology and were systematically eliminated. The regime sought to erase all traces of modernity and intellectualism, forcing people into rural areas to work in collective farms under inhumane conditions. Families were torn apart, and the social fabric of the nation was irreparably damaged.
Gun confiscation was swift and brutal, with anyone found possessing a firearm subject to immediate execution. The disarmament of the population was a key strategy for the Khmer Rouge to maintain control and suppress any potential resistance. Without the means to defend themselves, the Cambodian people were left vulnerable to the regime's atrocities. The confiscation of firearms was not just about removing weapons, It was about stripping away the last vestiges of power and autonomy from the people.
Disarmed and defenseless, millions of Cambodians were forced into labor camps or marched into the countryside to be executed. The labor camps were places of unimaginable suffering, where starvation, disease, and overwork claimed countless lives. Those who were not sent to the camps faced execution in the killing fields, where mass graves stand as silent witnesses to the horrors that occurred. The regime's policies decimated the population, leaving a legacy of trauma and loss that continues to affect Cambodia to this day.
The killing fields of Cambodia stand as a chilling reminder of the horrors that can unfold when a government monopolizes force and a population is left unable to resist. The memorials and mass graves serve as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of remembering history to prevent such atrocities from happening again. The Cambodian genocide is a stark example of the dangers of disarmament and the need for vigilance in protecting human rights and freedoms. It is a somber lesson in the consequences of unchecked power and the vital importance of ensuring that people have the means to defend themselves against tyranny.